Rick Wilson.
Hello, Jong-Fast. How are you on this fine day in our so-called country?
I'm just looking for a mysterious donor to donate $130 million to pay 1.3 million troops. I'm not a math genius.
I kind of do know math, and I will tell you that math is not, as the kids like to say, mathing in this case.
Yeah. So we're talking about Timothy Mellon volunteering to donate $130 million, which is a lot of money to us because we're poor, but to people like this, a childless billionaire, I think it's chump
Yeah.
change.
I mean, Molly, let me say this. He is donating this money because Donald Trump does not want Jeffrey Epstein files to be voted on in Congress. That's why he's giving Trump this money. And he's doing it with like the weirdest conditions and stipulations, like you must find Amelia Earhart's plane. What the fuck? And you know what? It's funny because like a few weeks ago, I was like, why is Trump tweeting about Amelia Earhart? What is going on here? What could be driving this? And you and I tend to like know shit. And I was like, I could not figure it out. I was like, why is he obsessed with Amelia Earhart? What is going on? And now we know. Timothy
So
Mellon wants to find Amelia Earhart.
so if they paid the troops out of this money, it would
Uh-huh.
be $100 a troop,
Pretty much.
period.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
that's $100. That is, in case you're wondering, not enough money. But it
No,
is
no, in
a
case
good
you're wondering, that is
not
subpar.
enough money. Good, but good headline for Trump, good headline for Timothy Mellon for people who don't read headlines. And I want to go to headlines for a minute because I want to talk about this gubernatorial race in New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's a good headline for Trump. It's a good headline for Timothy Mellon. For people who are not paying attention, they think, oh, Timothy Mellon, billionaire,
What a nice guy.
philanthropist. Yeah. But if you can't actually pay, if it won't actually pay the troops, then a- what what
Hey,
what do we
you know
think
how
the
we could pay the
play
troops,
here
Molly?
is?
You know we could pay the troops
How?
tomorrow?
How?
Open the
Tell me
fucking
more.
government. Open the fucking government.
So
Stop covering up the Jeffrey Epstein files and open the fucking government. This is
ve-
this is something like my tolerance for this because, I'm not sure if you know this, but basically people in the United States military essentially do not make money.
yes,
It is
they
not a
don't
it
do
is
it for
not
the
a it
money.
is not a place that people go
Just like
to rack in the
people who
quan.
Just so, like, people who work in the federal government could be making more in the private sector often. They do
Almost
it
all of
because
them could be,
they
yes.
care about the country, which is why Russ Vought wants to put them in trauma.
Yes,
Direct quote, "In trauma."
in trauma, yes. And look, Russ Vaughn is having the time this is the best week of Russ Vaughn's pathetic life.
Right.
He is getting a lot of the torture of these so-called evil bureaucrats that he wants to apply, right? He's really getting his way with a lot of the damage he wants to do to these people. And he
Right.
wants to make federal service so miserable that they quit
Right.
or that they
So a
go
lot of them have
or that they
already
go
quit.
away. And look, a number of them are going to or already have. But, you know, the tiny little itty bitty problems we're having in the country, like air traffic controllers aren't getting paid, and our military isn't getting paid, and our veterans benefits aren't getting paid. But who's getting paid? Christy Noem's film crew from ICE is getting paid. So yeah, they could solve this problem tomorrow. Mike Johnson could say, okay, we're back in session. We're passing the CR. I'm swearing in Adelita Grijalva. I give up. But they don't
Good
want to give up because Trump is telling people, as we saw that coverage of this week from I think the Washington Post. Trump enjoys how much a servile little shitbird Mike Johnson is. How much he makes Mike
so
Johnson obey.
So there was a good piece in the New York Times by one Annie Carney, who's been doing a really good job
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
covering what little Congress is doing, and she actually had this quote that Trump had said, basically, that he was the Speaker of the House and the
Yeah,
President,
yeah,
which I think is absolutely right,
yeah.
and in fact, one of the reasons why they are not able to make a deal right now is Democrats don't wanna make a deal with Mike Johnson because they
Why
know that
would
Mike
you?
Johnson isn't he is not the boss.
Trump running the entire government
It's
from
like the
the
team
House
it's
to the Senate to the White House
yeah.
and everything in between. to the Supreme Court. There is no
Mhm.
government but Trump. There is no Dana, only Zool. This is
Right.
Donald Trump. He runs all this. This is all by his choice. And if Mike Johnson cared about the House and cared about his members and cared about doing the duty that he has as an elected representative, he would stop this BS. But he will
Right, but he
not.
doesn't have the power. He serves at the
Right.
pleasure of Donald Trump. And the thing
Yep.
is, Donald Trump has, for whatever reason, decided he doesn't care right now about domestic stuff because he's working on getting a Nobel Peace Prize. And he's doing that by going overseas.
And building a
And
ballroom.
this, right. Well, that's not for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's just for the Nobel, just the fun of
The
kleptocracy.
the arrogant kleptocratic bullshit prize.
Right. But Donald Trump is overseas. He's going to Japan. He's going to South Korea. He's zipping around the globe. Even though I think that when you have tanks in Chicago,
Yeah.
you may actually not be getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
I'm
Discuss.
I'm gonna tell you from my understanding, tanks in the streets of your country, I think pretty much anywhere, it might be a disqualifier for the Nobel. I mean, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna take a big leap here, Molly, and just sort of make a piece of informed speculation that, Donald Trump's vibe set is not working for the Nobel Prize Committee ever. And he's not gonna get it this year because it's already been issued. He's not gonna get it next
Right.
year because there is nothing he can do to
Except piss
claim.
off India. Except piss off India.
Why not? Because he's pissed off everyone else at this point. That is very much on brand for Trump at the moment, is to piss off as many humans as possible.
And this weekend, we saw Donald Trump go basically again into trade war again with Canada because Canada had this advertisement he didn't like, which was Ronald Reagan talking
Right.
about how he didn't believe in tariffs. Donald Trump got very offended and said that it was fake news, despite the fact that while it is AI, it is, or no, it's not
No,
AI.
it was
It's just
not
a
AI. No, no,
speech.
Molly, this
Yeah.
was this was footage from a address Reagan read on the radio in 1987 about trade wars. Now, what has pissed off the MAGAs is that they didn't run one line that was in the speech that said, "Sometimes tariffs for a brief period of time can be useful and as a negotiating tactic," or something
Right.
like that. And this was not a speech like how much he loved tariffs. It was a speech about how much he hated tariffs. And what freaked Trump and his people out was there is still a core reality inside the Republican Party. Even in today's perverse imitation of the Republican Party, Ronald Reagan is still more popular.
Right.
Oops.
And it
And
pretty
and
much,
he does not
yeah.
like that. And this whole thing has become a kind of pissing contest about now the legacy of Reagan, who was not a tariff guy. He was a free trade
Free
guy,
trader. Yeah, in
you
fact,
know?
all Republicans have been free traders until right now.
Yes. Yes.
Just to get in
I
for
mean,
those
just
who
to just to catch
remember
y'all up, and I do
anything.
know a thing or
Yeah.
two about this world. Yes.
As we live in the bad place, that is in fact
Oh,
the
yes,
truth.
we do.
Oh, yes, we do. I wanna talk about Donald Trump's poor polling for a minute because I think this is my man is underwater. Talk to us about those numbers. I feel like you're
Um,
looking up numbers right now,
I'm
and you're
looking
gonna
at some
blow
numbers
me
right now,
away
but
with
I can just
numbers.
tell you, Donald Trump's numbers are shitty and yet
Good?
abysmal. Terrible and yet also painfully obviously declining into the hell space. The biggest number you should look at right now is the thing that subsumes all the other things, and that is the right track, wrong track. And about
Yeah.
70% of Americans say the country is on the wrong track.
We're united in
And
knowing
about
that
60
everything is
and
going to shit.
60% of Americans agree that the cause of that wrong track is one Donald John Trump. This is a bad place for him to be in. He is not a popular president. And I just this is one thing that in Congress, there's a belief, well, if we cross Trump, we're going to face all these political consequences.
Yeah.
You might. You might. If you let Trump be the sole creator of the national narrative, and
Yeah,
you are
you're
the ones in Congress as Republicans who are going to take all that radiation and take all that damage. Donald Trump gets certain exceptions because he was a celebrity and all the other things we've talked about a million times about who he is in the culture,
Mhm.
right? That's gone now.
Yes.
That do not exist. That ain't this world anymore. Because of that, these Republicans are going to take absolute whippings from their voters because you know what? They are not happy with Donald Trump's performance in office. They are pissed at the economy. They think the country's off on the wrong track. They think that the immigration stuff has gone too far. They think that tariffs are a terrible idea. There's almost nothing he's doing right now that is popular with the American people. And people have sort of like kind of ignored that really fundamental underpinning fact. He is a bad president and people don't like him. I mean, I'm trying to put that in words that even the MAGA listeners can understand, but he
And
is
so what
not popular,
let's talk about what's happening in Iowa,
okay?
because I think that this is a really good example of Iowa voted for Obama twice.
Yep.
They voted for Trump, and Trump has done some stuff that has put their GDP in a
Limbo.
tailspin.
No, yeah, actually, Tailspin's a
The
much better
bad
way phrase
place?
than limbo. The bad
Yeah,
place.
the
Look,
bad place.
he has he has fucked farmers in this country, in rural communities like Iowa, in a way that if you set out to do it, it would be hard to imagine you could do a more damaging job than what he's done. And
Yeah.
so, you see in the Farm Belt the realization that we're not gonna sell anybody any soybeans this year. We're not gonna sell
Mhm.
anybody any beef this year. The timber industry is now freaking out that they're slowing down. The timber industry was a big export industry in this country. They're now, like, freaking out because other countries are like, "No, we'll pass. We'll get some we'll work with somebody else."
This is
And
from
it's
the New York
all Trump.
Times. Iowa's GDP dropped by 6.1%, more than any state aside from neighboring Nebraska.
You know how many people are on, SNAP in Iowa? 18%. You know who
Do you know
doesn't get
who's
SNAP anymore in Iowa? Everybody.
Yeah, because you know why? Why don't people get SNAP?
Because Donald Trump closed down the government to keep the Epstein files from coming out, and Russ Vaught is a sadist.
And they could have done SNAP. In fact,
Yep.
previous shutdowns had done SNAP,
Previous
but
shutdowns
this
have carved out a
shutdown
SNAP
right,
exemption or whatever however you wanna phrase it.
ju
Yep.
just like they carved out the money for WIC, right?
Right.
Women, infant, and children so that you didn't have 40% of pregnant women
Wait a minute, guys,
dying of
listen,
starvation
these
like
these
we
these
did
starving
to
women and children
Somalia when we
these
cut
starving
off
women and
US aid.
children,
You see, that was a good
you know
one,
what?
right?
They can lift themselves up by their bootstraps, Molly.
Little bootstraps,
I think
little
we've had enough of
bootstraps.
accommodating these slackers.
Manufacturing, which drives 17% of Iowa's economic output, has been hit with higher production costs in part because of guess
Would it be tariffs?
why it would be tariffs.
Why the answer
But
would be
I
tariffs.
but I was told that the other people were gonna pay the tariffs.
I keep hearing about these other people paying the tariffs, and yet somehow it still seems to keep being Americans paying the tariffs.
It is bizarre. Now, I would like to say these people voted for Trump, now are starving, but they're gonna give Trump just one more shot.
So look, I will say this: there
Trust in
are
Trump, man.
there are
Trust in Trump.
there are still people who trust in Trump. There are still people who believe in Donald Trump as the avatar of all things, however you want to put it. But that number is shrinking. The hardcore is now a smaller, crazier edge, and the people who now understand the damage he's done to them, that number is increasing, including in these places where you think, okay, it's rural Iowa. They're always going to love Trump. They're never going to walk away from Trump. And what they'll do is many of them will never walk away from Trump, but many of them will say, you know what? I don't like all this libtard, blah, blah, blah. And quietly, they're going to say, yeah, I can't vote for that. I can't vote for Republican X. It is why you see even people like Ted Cruz in a panic right now. There are a lot of people in that Republican space who are looking at an outcome for next year if they were not gerrymandered to the hilt.
And even if they are, because and
Right.
again, this is not to say the gerrymandering is good. They're cheating and it's very
Correct.
bad. But you can't make votes you don't have. So if
Right.
you gerrymander to an R plus four from
Right.
a D plus two,
An R
and then
plus
you have
four
a
maybe was safe. Maybe in 2026, an R plus four is a tie ball game, or an R plus six is a tie ball game. This
right,
is this
and
is shaping into an election where unless
a
they do
wave.
something really extreme on the other side, like troops in the streets, I think they know that their chances of holding on to the House now are absolutely, fading by the minute.
And that is why they're talking about doing troops in the streets, and
Yep.
that is why it is gonna be a moment where we're all gonna have to say this is not okay. Like, from Susan Collins to Ted Cruz to everyone we know, we're gonna have to be in the streets being like, "Look, we have free and fair elections."
Right.
Now, I wanna move on to something else, which is
Okay.
a question that has been going around. Steve Bannon said on television that Donald Trump is gonna run again. This is a thing people really like to say. The CPAC, they had a third term project. Again, Donald Trump running again, a real danger. But I think that we have to talk about one thing when we talk about this, which is how old is Donald Trump
Well, let me put it this way. I can tell you how old he'll be when he runs again.
if he
83.
does? Yes. At 79, he was the oldest person to ever
Yes,
be elected president.
that is correct.
Older than Joseph Robinette Biden.
Yes. Also,
Discuss.
all right, first off, let's break Bannon down into two boxes. One, Bannon is the king of all bullshitters, and he's doing this to get on Trump's good side and
Yeah,
to keep himself in the War
that
Room podcast
right. That
relevant.
my take is that it's better for Bannon. Bannon wants Trump to see him supporting him.
That is correct. But I will also say, if Bannon finds a pathway that he can both monetize for
Yeah.
himself, his podcast, his media companies, Breitbart, etc., and he finds a path where he thinks he can somehow get a thinly argued but potentially Supreme Court friendly third term
You're right.
lawsuit to the Supreme Court, he will try to do it. He's not a guy with a lot of shame. He will try
All
to do
things
this.
all things can be true, right? All things
Right.
can be true.
But as I like to say, if Bannon does start to try to execute on this, and I'm gonna tell my liberal friends this, you don't have to fight him just in court. You have to fight in on every fucking axis possible. You have to bring a level of pain to the Republicans and to the White House that they have previously never
A
experienced.
nonviolent pain. But
Sure. No, but what I'm saying is
nonviolent pain,
that's when the Democrats in Congress
right,
don't just
have
do
to make everything
investigations. That's
right,
when they
have to
say
do
to the White
everything
House,
they
"We're cutting
can.
the White House's budget. We're eliminating
Right,
Russ Vaught's salary. We're going
right,
in to
exactly.
drill through every aspect of this," where they have to
Yes,
exercise power in a way that Democrats often hesitate to exercise it.
for sure, 100%. I do wanna say, Jake Tapper, where is your book on Donald Trump's health? Because those cankles,
I was
not
told
looking
that
good.
presidential health and mental fitness was the central issue of our time.
Yeah, I
So
was told that too.
I would like to see more reporting on that from more reporters on that.
And
Just saying.
CNN. Let's
Just
and
saying.
Jake
Just
Tapper.
CNN, and not like Biden watch. Did he stumble up a staircase today? As opposed
Mhm.
to Trump, who goes into every cabinet meeting, every presser, every press availability on the plane. And it's like, herbal burble, zibba dibba dibba boo, shamalama ding dong. And he's just saying shit, and you don't know what the fuck is happening.
Rick Wilson,
Yes, ma'am.
will you come back?
Of course I will. You know me.